The massive council chamber hummed with the low voices of hundreds of alien species. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their specialized environment pods, each one designed for their unique biology. The air shimmered with translation, fields as dozens of languages mixed together into one understandable flow of words. Ambassador. Zethkari adjusted his breathing apparatus and reviewed the datapad in his four-fingered hands. The hegemony had called this emergency session to discuss reports coming from the Outer Rim territories. Strange stories about a new species were spreading through the trade routes, and the council needed to decide how to respond. The species calls itself human, Zethkari announced as holographic displays activated around the chamber. They originate from a world they name Earth, located in what we call the Terra 3 system. Initial contact protocols suggest they are a typical carbon-based life form with standard biological limitations. The hologram showed a bipedal creature with pale skin and dark hair. It looked fragile, almost delicate compared to the armored Craxians or the towering Velthari. Several council members made dismissive clicking sounds with their mandibles. However, Zethkari continued, we have received conflicting reports about their capabilities. Some traders describe them as weak beings with lifespans of barely 100 rotations. Others claim they are immortal warriors who cannot be killed. Commander Vexthon of the 4th Expansion Fleet leaned forward in his pod. His species, the Mordeki, were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. Ambassador. These primitive worlds often exaggerate their encounters with new species. Fear makes small creatures seem large. Zethkari nodded but tapped his datapad again. New images appeared in the hologram. That would be logical, Commander. But these reports come from 17 different systems across 12 sectors. The stories are remarkably consistent. The first image showed the wreckage of a cargo hauler. The metal was twisted beyond recognition, scattered across several kilometers of space. This is the merchant vessel Star's Fortune. According to the distress beacon, they suffered catastrophic engine failure. No life pods were launched. The ship was completely destroyed. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the chamber. Engine failures were always tragic, but common enough in deep space. 3 days later, a patrol ship found the survivors on a nearby asteroid. All 47 crew members were alive and healthy. When asked how they escaped, they claimed the humans saved them. The murmurs stopped. Several council members activated their translation systems, certain they had misheard. The survivors insist that humans appeared after the explosion, somehow moving through vacuum without environmental suits. They describe beings who pulled them from burning wreckage that should have killed any organic life form instantly. Commander Vexthon's voice carried a note of skepticism. Hallucinations caused by oxygen deprivation. It is well documented. Zethkari activated another display. Here is security footage from mining station Kepler 7. The hologram showed a typical asteroid mining operation. Massive drilling platforms extracted precious metals while workers in environmental suits moved between them. The image shuddered as something struck the station. Explosions rippled across the mining platforms. Emergency klaxons wailed as the station began breaking apart. Through the chaos, small figures could be seen moving between the collapsing structures. A rogue asteroid struck the main reactor. The explosion should have killed everyone instantly. But watch carefully. Zethkari enhanced the image, focusing on the small figures. They moved with purpose through the destruction, carrying what appeared to be injured miners. Those are humans. They arrived at the station only hours before the impact. Somehow, they not only survived an explosion that vaporized half the installation, they rescued 38 miners and engineers. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Silthara, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated her communication array. Ambassador, do we have any biological data on these humans? Limited information only, Zethkari replied. They appear to be standard oxygen-breathing mammals. They have internal skeletons, central nervous systems, and closed circulatory systems. Nothing remarkable. Then how do they survive these events? Zethkari paused, knowing his next words would sound impossible. According to witnesses, they do not survive them. Multiple reports describe humans dying in these incidents only to reappear later, alive and unharmed. The silence stretched longer this time. Finally, High Counselor Murthak spoke. His ancient voice carried the weight of centuries. You speak of resurrection, Ambassador. Such things do not exist in our understanding of biology. I report only what has been documented, High Counselor. Perhaps more disturbing are the reports from the neutral zone conflicts. New images appeared. Battle scenes showed smoking ruins and destroyed vehicles. The Zalari pirates have been raiding the outer settlements for months. Standard procedure calls for evacuation when they approach. But in systems with human presence, something different happens. The hologram showed a small human settlement under attack. Zalari raiders descended from orbit in their assault craft expecting easy prey. Instead, they met organized resistance. Humans emerged from buildings and defensive positions carrying primitive kinetic weapons. The Zalari outgunned these humans by orders of magnitude. Their energy weapons should cut through human defenses instantly. But watch what happens. The battle footage showed humans taking direct hits from plasma cannons. They fell, clearly dead from wounds that would kill any known species, but minutes later other humans appeared, seeming to rise from the same locations. The fighting continued as if nothing had happened. Either humans have developed resurrection technology beyond our comprehension, or we are missing something fundamental about their nature. Commander Vexthon studied the footage carefully. His military training told him to look for logical explanations. Perhaps they use clones or artificial doubles. Some species have developed such technology. Dr. Silthera activated her array again. Commander, creating functional clones requires massive infrastructure. These are frontier settlements with populations in the hundreds. They lack the facilities for such technology. Zethkari brought up the final set of data. Most concerning are the reports from long-range traders. They describe human ships appearing in systems weeks faster than should be possible, even with the most advanced engines. The hologram showed navigation charts with plotted courses. This is the trade route from the Vega Collective to the Centauri markets. Standard travel time is 43 days using conventional drives, 28 days with military-grade engines. Human vessels complete this journey in 18 days. When asked about their propulsion technology, they claim to use chemical rockets and something called ion drives. Both are considered primitive by galactic standards. High Counselor Murthak shifted in his environmental pod. These reports contradict basic physics, Ambassador. Either the humans possess technology far beyond our understanding, or these stories are elaborate fiction. That is what the Council must decide, Zethkari replied. Do we treat humans as an advanced species hiding their capabilities, or as primitives whose actions have been exaggerated by frightened witnesses? Commander Vexthon's mandibles clicked in what his species used for laughter. I vote for the second option, High Counselor. Fear makes people see impossible things. A proper military demonstration should clarify the situation quickly. You propose first contact through military action? Dr. Silthara asked. I propose a show of strength. We destroy one small settlement to demonstrate galactic superiority, then negotiate from a position of power. Standard procedure for primitive species. High Counselor Murthak considered this. Very well, Commander. You will take a small force to human space. Make contact through demonstration of force. But be careful. If these humans possess advanced technology, we do not want to provoke a larger conflict. Zethkari felt a strange unease as the Council voted to approve military action. Something about the human reports bothered him, but he could not identify what. Perhaps Commander Vexthon was right. Perhaps fear and distance had transformed normal events into impossible stories. But as the session ended and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Zethkari noticed something in the footage that made his skin crawl. In every image of humans and every piece of security footage, their eyes held the same expression. Not fear, not anger, but something else entirely. They looked like they were expecting something, like they knew what was coming. The fourth expansion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, with the precision that made the hegemony famous across the galaxy. 47 warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their weapon systems powered but not yet locked onto targets. Commander Vexthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, studying the tactical displays with satisfaction. Human space looked exactly as primitive as he had expected. The settlements scattered across the system used basic fusion reactors and simple communication arrays. Their ships moved with the sluggish pace of chemical propulsion. Everything about the system screamed of a species that had barely learned to travel between planets. Target analysis complete, Commander, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mordek. Harmony Station appears to be their primary orbital facility. Population approximately 50,000. Minimal defensive capabilities detected. Vexthon nodded. Harmony Station hung in orbit around a gas giant, a simple ring structure that rotated to provide artificial gravity. It was beautiful in its simplicity but laughably vulnerable. A single torpedo would crack it open like an egg. Any response to our arrival? Vexthon asked. Standard communication protocols, sir. They are requesting identification and purpose of visit. No hostile actions detected. Perfect. The humans were following exactly the pattern Vexthon expected from primitive species. First curiosity, then fear, then submission. He had conducted this same operation dozens of times across the Outer Rim territories. Open a channel to all human facilities in the system, Vexthon ordered. Standard intimidation protocol. The communication array activated, broadcasting across all frequencies the humans used. Vexthon's image appeared on every screen in the Kepler system, his armored form designed to inspire fear in weaker species. I am Commander Vexthon of the Hegemony 4th Expansion Fleet. Your species has entered galactic space without proper authorization. You will submit to Hegemony authority and accept integration into our empire. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your settlements. He paused for effect, letting the translation systems process his words into the crude human language. You have 1 hour to respond with your surrender. Failure to comply will result in demonstration of our capabilities. The channel closed. Now came the waiting period. In Vexthon's experience, most primitive species used this time to panic, argue among themselves, and eventually send desperate pleas for mercy. It was almost boring in its predictability. Sir, Lieutenant Mordek called from his station. We are receiving multiple responses from human facilities. Display them, Vexthon ordered, expecting to see the usual collection of terrified leaders begging for their lives. Instead, the main screen showed a human female in what appeared to be a simple work uniform. She stood in what looked like a typical command center, completely calm despite the massive fleet threatening her people. Commander Vexthon, she said in accented but clear galactic standard. I am Director Sarah Chen of Harmony Station. We acknowledge your presence in our system. Vexthon waited for the usual pleading and negotiation attempts. Instead, the human continued with the same calm tone. However, we must inform you that the Kepler system is under human protection. We recommend you withdraw your forces to avoid any unpleasant misunderstandings. The bridge fell silent. Lieutenant Mordek checked his instruments twice, certain he had misheard the translation. A primitive species with 50,000 inhabitants was threatening a hegemony battle fleet. Did she just... Another officer began. She did, Vexthon confirmed, his voice tight with controlled anger. Display the other responses. The screen cycled through messages from other human facilities throughout the system. Mining stations, research outposts, and small colonies all delivered the same message with the same inexplicable calm. Not one showed any sign of fear or desperation. Sir, I am detecting unusual communication traffic throughout the system, the communications officer reported. The humans are transmitting on frequencies we cannot decode. The volume is far beyond what their infrastructure should support. Vexthon studied the tactical display more carefully. The human settlements were indeed communicating with each other, but the data streams made no sense. Simple fusion-powered stations were generating communication output that would require massive quantum arrays. How long until the deadline expires? He asked. 47 minutes, sir. Very well. Prepare to target Harmony Station. Load conventional torpedoes. We want survivors to spread word of what happens to species that defy the hegemony. The weapon systems came online across the fleet, targeting computers locked onto the human station with mechanical precision. Vexthon felt the familiar satisfaction of a military operation proceeding according to plan. Then his long-range sensors detected something impossible. Sir, we have multiple contacts approaching from the outer system, the sensor officer announced, his voice rising with confusion. Configuration unknown. Estimated arrival time. That cannot be correct. Report properly, officer. Sir, the contacts are moving at velocities that should tear any known hull material apart. They appear to be on direct intercept courses with our position. Vexthon moved to the sensor station himself. The display showed dozens of contacts streaming in from multiple directions. The velocity readings made his mind struggle to process what he was seeing. These readings are impossible, he stated. No ship can move that fast in normal space. Confirmed impossible, sir. But the contacts are definitely there and definitely approaching. How long since we entered the system? Vexthon asked, though he already knew the answer. 38 minutes, sir. The implications hit him like a physical blow. Even with the fastest hegemony communication systems, it would take hours to alert distant stations about their arrival. The approaching ships would have needed to depart their positions before the hegemony fleet even entered the system. "Sir, we are receiving a new transmission from the humans," the communications officer announced. The screen displayed the same human female, Director Chen, but something had changed in her expression. She no longer looked calm. She looked sad. "Commander Vexthon, our deadline expires in 9 minutes. This is your final opportunity to withdraw from human space. Please understand that we take no pleasure in what must happen if you remain." "What must happen?" Vexthon demanded, though the channel had already closed. His question was answered by the tactical display. The approaching human ships had somehow accelerated even beyond their already impossible speeds. The sensor readings hurt to look at. "Sir, should we engage the approaching contacts?" Vexthon stared at the display, his military training warring with the evidence of his sensors. Everything about this situation violated his understanding of physics and warfare. But he was a hegemony commander, and the hegemony did not retreat from primitive species. "All ships target the human station. Fire at will." The torpedo spread launched with perfect precision. 47 ships fired simultaneously, sending a wave of destruction toward Harmony Station. The human facility had no shields, no point defense systems, no chance of survival. The torpedoes struck exactly on target. Harmony Station vanished in a brief, brilliant flash. 50,000 human lives ended in an instant. "Target eliminated, sir," Lieutenant Mordek reported with satisfaction. "All weapon systems ready for next target." Vexathon nodded but kept watching the long-range sensors. The approaching human ships had not slowed or changed course despite the destruction of their station. "Time to contact with unknown vessels. 14 minutes, sir. Then we wait to see what these humans truly are." 13 minutes later, the first human ships entered visual range. What Vexthon saw through the main viewer made him question everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human vessels looked like they had been built in a junkyard. Mismatched hull plates, exposed mechanical systems, and propulsion units that seemed held together with hope and determination. They should have fallen apart from their own acceleration, but they moved with a grace and precision that made hegemony ships look clumsy by comparison. And there were so many of them. The sensor count kept climbing as more contacts appeared from every direction. "Sir, we are being hailed by the lead human vessel." On screen. The image that appeared made Vexthon's blood run cold. A human male in what appeared to be military uniform stood in a command center that looked like it belonged on a ship held together with scrap metal. But his eyes held something that Vexthon recognized from his own species' darkest legends. "Commander Vexthon," the human said in a voice that carried no emotion at all, "I am Admiral Marcus Torres of the Human Defense Force. You have attacked a civilian target in human space and killed 50,000 innocent people." The human paused, and Vexthon realized that the silence was not for dramatic effect. The Admiral was actually struggling to control his emotions. "We are now at war," Torres continued. "You will surrender your fleet immediately or we will take it by force. You have 60 seconds to decide." The channel closed, leaving Vexathon staring at tactical displays that showed human ships surrounding his fleet in formations he had never seen before. Somehow, in less than an hour, the humans had mobilized a force that outnumbered his fleet 3-1. The Battle of Kepler began exactly 60 seconds after Admiral Torres closed the communication channel. Vexthon had chosen to fight rather than surrender, confident that superior hegemony technology would overcome whatever primitive tricks the humans might employ. That confidence lasted approximately 30 seconds into the engagement. The human attack pattern made no sense from any rational military perspective. Instead of maintaining safe distances and using long-range weapons, they accelerated directly toward the hegemony formation. Their ships moved like guided missiles, abandoning all pretense of self-preservation. "Evasive maneuvers," Vexthon shouted as 3 human vessels lined up for ramming attacks on his flagship. "All batteries fire at will!" The Eternal Dominion's plasma cannons carved through space with deadly precision. The first human ship took a direct hit that should have vaporized it instantly. Instead, the vessel continued its attack run even as sections of its hull peeled away like burning paper. Lieutenant Mordek watched in horror as the damaged human ship struck the hegemony cruiser's Sword of Justice. Both vessels exploded in a brilliant flash, their reactors detonating simultaneously. But somehow, impossibly, The explosion seemed to favor the humans. Debris from the Sword of Justice scattered in all directions, while the human ship's remains held together just long enough to take out the cruiser's entire command section. "How are they doing this?" Mordek whispered, staring at his tactical display. "Their ships should not be able to maintain structural integrity after taking those hits." Vexthon had no answer. His fleet was fighting an enemy that seemed to ignore basic physics. Human ships continued attacking even after suffering damage that should have killed their crews instantly. When hegemony weapons struck human vessels, the results were inconsistent. Sometimes the ships exploded as expected. Other times they simply shrugged off impacts that should have been devastating. "Sir, we are receiving a priority communication from Captain Kelthera aboard the Swift Strike." The screen showed a hegemony officer in obvious distress. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at damaged stations. "Commander, you need to see this." "We captured a human attack craft. The pilot should be dead, but..." The image shifted to show a human strapped into what remained of a small fighter. The craft had taken multiple plasma hits and been torn nearly in half. The pilot's environmental suit was breached, and he should have died from vacuum exposure minutes ago. But the human was still conscious, still trying to reach his weapon controls. "He has been like this for 10 minutes, Captain Kelthera continued. "Our medical scans show massive trauma that should have killed him instantly. But he keeps trying to resume his attack." Vexthon stared at the impossible sight. "What do your medics say?" "They refuse to examine him, sir. They claim he is already dead but does not know it yet." The communication cut out as another human ship rammed the Swift Strike. Vexthon watched on his tactical display as both vessels vanished in another mutual annihilation. But again, somehow the human ship seemed to inflict more damage than it received. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are intercepting human tactical communications. You need to hear this." The speakers filled with human voices speaking in their crude language. The translation system struggled to keep up, but the words that came through made Vexthon's skin crawl. "Phoenix Squadron, initiate ramming pattern 7. Acceptable loss ratio is 40%. You copy that, Control. Beginning attack run. Remember, we only need to survive long enough to reach target. Wolverine Wing, your missiles are ineffective against their armor. Switch to suicide runs. Acceptable loss ratio is 70%. Understood. All craft, set reactors to overload on impact." Vexthon listened to the casual way the humans discussed their own deaths. They were not desperate soldiers making final sacrifices. They were calculating acceptable loss ratios like any other tactical consideration. "They are insane," Lieutenant Mordek breathed. "They discuss death like we discuss ammunition expenditure." But Vexthon was beginning to understand something far more terrifying. The humans were not being reckless. They were being efficient. Every suicide attack was precisely calculated to inflict maximum damage on hegemony forces, while minimizing human losses. "Sir, incoming priority message from Fleet Command." Admiral Kethmoran appeared on the screen, his usually composed features showing strain. "Commander Vexthon, what is your tactical situation?" "We are engaged with human forces, Admiral. They employ unconventional tactics that..." "Commander, we have a problem. Long-range sensors detect massive human fleet movements throughout this entire sector. They are mobilizing forces we did not know existed." Vexthon felt his confidence crumble. "How large a force, Admiral?" "Preliminary estimates suggest over 3,000 vessels converging on your position." "Commander, how many humans did you kill when you destroyed that station?" 50,000, sir. It was a demonstration of force as per standard protocol." Admiral Kethmoran's expression darkened. "Commander, it appears that humanity considers the attempted murder of 50,000 civilians to be an act of war. Not the successful murder, the attempt." The implications hit Vexthon like a physical blow. "Sir, are you saying they evacuated the station?" "Intelligence reports suggest the humans evacuated Harmony Station in the final minutes before impact. Your attack killed empty buildings, not civilians, but humanity has declared total war in response to your attempt to commit genocide." The tactical display suddenly filled with new contacts. Human ships were dropping out of hyperspace throughout the system, arriving in perfect formation despite the impossibility of such coordination. Vexthon counted over 200 vessels already, with more appearing every minute. "How did they evacuate 50,000 people in less than an hour?" he asked, though he was no longer sure he wanted to know the answer. Lieutenant Mordek pulled up the sensor records from the attack. Sir, look at this. The station's power grid spiked just before our torpedoes hit. All docking bays showed massive activity. But there were no ships large enough to evacuate that many people. Then where did they go? His question was answered by a new communication from Admiral Torres. The human appeared calm despite commanding a battle where thousands of his people were dying. Commander Vexthon, you seem confused by our capabilities. Allow me to clarify the situation. The 50,000 people you attempted to murder are safe. They have been relocated to secure facilities where they can continue their work. Impossible, Vexthon stated. We monitored all ship movements. There was no evacuation. Admiral Torres smiled, and the expression was somehow more terrifying than any threat. Commander, you monitored the ship movements you were capable of detecting. Humanity has been preparing for first contact with hostile aliens for over 2 centuries. Did you really think we would make ourselves completely visible to unknown technologies? The display behind Torres showed tactical information that made Vexthon's mind reel. Human ships were not just surrounding his fleet. They were positioned in 3-dimensional formations that demonstrated understanding of physics far beyond what their crude technology should allow. You see, Commander, humanity learned something important from our own history. The aggressor always believes they understand their target's capabilities. The aggressor is almost always wrong. The human admiral gestured to something off-screen. You destroyed buildings and infrastructure that we can rebuild in months. In response, you have given us justification to do something we have been wanting to do for decades. What is that? Vexthon asked, though he dreaded the answer. Test our new weapon systems on actual targets. The sensor display exploded with new energy signatures. Human ships throughout the system were powering up weapons that should not exist. The energy outputs were beyond anything the hegemony had ever recorded from ships of those sizes. Sir? Lieutenant Mordek reported, his voice shaking. The human vessels are generating power levels equivalent to our Dreadnought-class ships. That should be impossible with their reactor technology. Admiral Torres heard the translation and nodded approvingly. Very good, Lieutenant. You are beginning to understand. The reactor technology you detected is what we wanted you to see. The weapons you are about to experience are what we kept hidden. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space like a miniature star. Energy beams that belonged on orbital defense platforms struck hegemony. Ships from vessels that looked like they were held together with spare parts. Vexthon watched his fleet die with the efficiency of a slaughter. Human weapons cut through hegemony shields like they were not there. Armor that had withstood bombardments from entire enemy fleets melted under sustained human fire. But the most terrifying part was the human voices on the communication channels. They did not cheer or celebrate as their enemies died. They reported kills with the same calm professionalism they used for everything else. Target eliminated. Moving to next engagement zone. Direct hit confirmed. Enemy vessel destroyed. No human casualties. Multiple targets neutralized. All systems green. Continuing mission. They spoke about destroying hegemony warships the way Vexthon's crew discussed routine maintenance, as if annihilating a galactic superpower's fleet was just another day at work. Dr. Silthara had spent her entire career studying alien life forms. She had cataloged the biology of over 300 species and helped establish first contact protocols for dozens of civilizations. But the data flowing across her laboratory screens defied everything she thought she knew about evolution and biology. The emergency xenobiology conference had been called immediately after Commander Vexthon's humiliating defeat at Kepler. The Hegemony High Command needed answers about human capabilities, and they needed them quickly. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered to analyze the limited biological data available on humanity. The preliminary scans make no sense, Dr. Silthara announced to the assembled scientists. According to our instruments, humans are standard carbon-based mammals with unremarkable physical capabilities. But their performance in combat contradicts these readings. She activated the holographic display, showing a human anatomical chart alongside comparative data from other species. Average human height is 1.7 meters, mass approximately 70 kilograms. Bone density and muscle structure suggest they should be physically weaker than most galactic species. Professor Kethamiran of the Velthari Science Collective raised one of his forearms. Doctor, perhaps their technology compensates for biological limitations. Enhanced armor or medical systems could explain their apparent durability. That was our initial hypothesis, Dr. Silthara replied. But analysis of combat footage shows humans surviving injuries while wearing no protective equipment at all. We have documented cases of humans continuing to fight with wounds that should have caused immediate death. She changed the display to show sensor readings from the Kepler battle. Look at these biological scans from human fighters. Multiple subjects show massive trauma to vital organs, yet they remained conscious and functional for extended periods. The assembled scientists studied the data in growing confusion. Dr. Morthek of the Craxian Medical Corps spoke for many of them. These readings suggest subjects who are clinically dead but still moving. Such a thing is impossible. Unless, Dr. Silthera said quietly, we have fundamentally misunderstood what humans are. She activated a new data stream that had arrived just hours earlier. This is the complete biological and environmental data package on humanity, obtained from their own databases during the recent conflict. What we discovered about their homeworld changes everything. The hologram shifted to show a blue and green planet rotating slowly in space. It looked peaceful and beautiful, exactly the kind of world that would produce a gentle, civilized species. This is Earth, the human homeworld. Initial scans suggest a standard Class M environment suitable for carbon-based life. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere, liquid water, moderate temperatures. It appears ideal for biological development. Professor Keith Mirren nodded. Exactly what we would expect from their apparent biology. But a detailed analysis reveals something very different. Dr. Silthera enhanced the display to show atmospheric composition. The oxygen content is 21%. This concentration would be toxic to most galactic species. Oxygen is a highly corrosive gas that breaks down cellular structures over time. Murmurs of concern rippled through the audience. High oxygen concentrations were associated with Class 7 hazard worlds, planets too dangerous for most species to inhabit. The surface gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. This is nearly twice what most civilized species consider comfortable. Prolonged exposure to such gravity would crush the bone structure of many galactic races. Dr. Silthera continued reading from the environmental data. Temperature variations range from -89 degrees to +58 degrees Celsius. Weather patterns include cyclonic storms with winds exceeding 400 kilometers per hour. Seismic activity produces ground accelerations that would level most galactic cities. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Dr. Morthek spoke in a hushed voice. Doctor, you are describing a Class 12 death world. Such planets are considered uninhabitable by galactic standards, yet humans evolved there naturally, Dr. Silthera confirmed. But the environmental hazards are only the beginning. Analysis of Earth's biosphere reveals something unprecedented in galactic records. The hologram changed to show various Earth life forms. The scientists watched in growing horror as creatures that looked like nightmares moved across their screens. This is a Tyrannosaurus rex, a predator from Earth's past. Length, 12 meters. Mass, 8,000 kilograms. Bite force, 57,000 newtons. For comparison, the largest predator on my homeworld exerts 3,000 newtons of bite force. More creatures appeared in the display. Great white sharks with jaws designed to bite through metal. Saltwater crocodiles that can remain motionless for hours before striking with explosive speed. Polar bears with claws that can tear through steel. Professor Kethmiran's forearms trembled as he processed the information. These creatures are apex predators beyond anything in our experience. How did humans survive in such an environment? By becoming something more dangerous than any of them, Dr. Silthera replied. Humans did not just survive on Earth, they conquered it. They eliminated the megafauna, tamed the environment, and rebuilt the ecosystem to serve their needs. She displayed a timeline of human development. In a geological instant, humans went from prey animals hiding in caves to the dominant species on their planet. They accomplished this not through superior physical capabilities, but through something far more terrifying. What is that? Dr. Morthek asked, though his voice suggested he was not sure he wanted to know. Persistence, Dr. Silthera said simply. Humans develop the ability to continue functioning regardless of physical damage, environmental conditions, or individual mortality. They treat death as a temporary setback rather than a final defeat. The hologram showed human historical records, battle scenes where humans fought with primitive weapons against impossible odds, exploration records where humans ventured into environments that should have killed them instantly, scientific experiments where humans deliberately exposed themselves to deadly conditions to gather knowledge. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to avoid death. Humans evolved to accept it as an inevitable part of life. This fundamental difference in psychology allowed them to take risks and make sacrifices that other species cannot comprehend. Dr. Silthera pulled up medical data from the Kepler battle. Look at these genetic scans from human soldiers. Their DNA contains redundant systems, backup organs, and cellular repair mechanisms far beyond what normal evolution would produce. You are suggesting artificial enhancement? Professor Kethmiran asked. No, natural selection. Humans who could survive massive trauma were more likely to reproduce. Over thousands of generations, they developed biology specifically designed to function under extreme stress. She highlighted specific genetic markers: accelerated healing, enhanced pain tolerance, redundant circulatory systems, and most importantly, distributed neural networks that allow consciousness to continue even after severe brain damage. The implications were staggering. Dr. Morthek struggled to process what he was hearing. You are describing a species that evolved specifically to wage war. Not just war, Dr. Silthera corrected. They evolved to persist. Humans can survive in environments that would kill most galactic species instantly. They can continue functioning with injuries that would incapacitate our finest warriors, and they view individual death as acceptable if it serves the survival of their species. The hologram shifted to show human space installations. This explains their apparent immortality. When humans die in combat, they are replaced immediately by others with identical training and purpose. From an external perspective, it appears that individual humans cannot be killed, because the collective continues regardless of individual losses. Professor Kethmiran raised a disturbing question. Doctor, if humans are this resilient naturally, what explains their advanced technology? The weapons they used against Commander Vexthon's fleet were far beyond what their apparent development level should allow. Dr. Silthara's expression grew grim. That is the most terrifying aspect of this analysis. Humans have been space-capable for less than 2 centuries. In that brief time, they have developed technology that rivals our greatest achievements. How is that possible? Because they approach technological development the same way they approach everything else. They are willing to take risks and accept casualties that other species would never consider. Human research facilities routinely conduct experiments that would be considered criminally negligent by galactic standards. She displayed examples of human scientific research. They test new technologies on themselves. They deliberately expose their researchers to dangerous conditions to gather data. They accept that a percentage of their scientists will die in the process of developing new knowledge. The result is technological advancement at a rate that defies all galactic precedent. What takes other species centuries to develop safely, humans accomplish in decades through brute force experimentation. The room sat in stunned silence as the full implications became clear. Finally, Dr. Morthek spoke what everyone was thinking. We are dealing with a species that has turned death into a competitive advantage. Dr. Silthera nodded gravely. Exactly. Humans are not immortal in the sense that they cannot die. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler, the Hegemony High Command gathered for an emergency session that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Admiral Kethmoran stood before the assembled leaders, his usually composed demeanor cracked by exhaustion and something approaching terror. The war is lost, he announced without preamble. Not just this war, any possible war with humanity. High Counselor Murthak shifted in his environmental pod. Admiral, explain your statement. Our intelligence suggests the humans have limited numbers and primitive technology. Our intelligence was catastrophically wrong, Admiral Kethmoran replied. Yesterday we witnessed something that changes our understanding of what we are fighting. The holographic display activated, showing the debris field that had once been the Third Fleet's flagship, the Unstoppable Force. The massive dreadnought had been the pride of the Hegemony Navy, equipped with shields that could withstand planetary bombardments and weapons capable of cracking moons. The human vessel, UES Persistence, engaged the Unstoppable Force in single combat. Our ship mounted the most advanced weaponry in the galaxy. The human vessel appeared to be constructed from scrap metal and spare parts. Admiral Kethmoran paused, still struggling to process what he had witnessed. The Persistence took a direct hit from our planet-killer weapon. The entire ship was vaporized. All 30,000 crew members were reduced to component atoms. We confirmed their destruction with multiple independent sensor arrays. Then how did we lose the engagement? High Counselor Murthak asked. Because 18 hours later, the Persistence reappeared and resumed its attack run. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Several council members activated their translation systems, certain they had misheard. Admiral, Dr. Silthera spoke carefully. You are describing resurrection. Such technology does not exist. That is what we believed, Admiral Kethmaran confirmed. But we intercepted human communications during the engagement. The crew of the Persistence discussed their destruction as if it were a minor inconvenience. The display showed intercepted message transcripts. The Council read them with growing disbelief. Navigation, confirm our position after reconstruction. Position confirmed, Captain. We are exactly where we were destroyed. Engineering, status report on ship systems. All systems nominal, Captain. Reconstruction completed in 14 hours, 37 minutes. New ship time. Excellent. Resume attack pattern. Target the enemy flagship. High Counselor Murthak read the transcript twice before speaking. They discussed their own deaths like equipment malfunctions. Because that is exactly how they view it, Admiral Kethmaran replied. Further intelligence gathering revealed that humans have developed what they call quantum consciousness backup technology. When humans die, their minds are immediately restored from quantum storage systems. Dr. Silthara studied the technical data with scientific fascination and growing horror. Admiral, this technology should be impossible. Consciousness cannot be digitized and restored. Yet humans have accomplished it. But that is not the most disturbing discovery. Admiral Kethmaran activated new files from human databases. This backup technology is not their greatest achievement. According to intercepted communications, it is merely their most recent adaptation. The display showed human research facilities conducting experiments that violated every safety protocol in galactic history. Scientists deliberately exposed themselves to radiation, vacuum, and exotic matter while recording. The effects on their consciousness transfer. Systems. Humans discussed Generation 7. Modifications in consciousness transfer protocols as routine upgrades to their biology. They are not just using technology to overcome death. They are evolving beyond it. Professor Kethmaran of the Velthari Science Collective raised his arms in a gesture of surrender. Admiral, you are describing a species that has made extinction impossible through technological evolution. It gets worse, Admiral Kethmaran continued. Our deepest intelligence penetration revealed human long-term planning documents. They view the heat death of the universe as an engineering problem to be solved. He displayed a human strategic planning document that had been translated into galactic standard. The Council read it with mounting dread. Project Eternity. Development of self-sustaining habitats capable of surviving universal entropy. Timeline 50,000 years. Resource requirements minimal. Acceptable casualty rate 100% of current population. High Counselor Murthak spoke in a whisper. They plan to sacrifice their entire current population to ensure their species survives the death of the universe. And they consider this a reasonable trade-off, Admiral Kethmaran confirmed. Humans do not view extinction as a possibility because they have made it irrelevant through continuous adaptation. Dr. Silthara pulled up biological data that made her hands shake. Admiral, look at these genetic scans from recent human populations. Their DNA is changing in real time. They are not just evolving through natural selection. They are directing their own evolution. Explain, High Counselor Murthak demanded. Human scientists modify their own genetic code to adapt to new environments and challenges. When they encounter a problem that kills humans, they engineer humans who cannot be killed by that problem. Death becomes a research tool for species improvement. The implications were staggering. Admiral Kethmaran continued with his report. Yesterday's engagement demonstrated this principle perfectly. When the Persistence was destroyed by our planet-killer weapon, the humans immediately began developing defenses against that specific weapon type. The reconstructed ship was not identical to the original. It incorporated improvements based on the data gathered during its destruction. The crew that died in the first engagement volunteered their deaths to provide tactical intelligence for the improved version. High Counselor Murthak struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. You are saying they use death as a form of research methodology? Exactly. Humans deliberately expose themselves to things that kill them in order to develop ways to survive those things. Each death provides data for making the species more resilient. Dr. Silthera discovered an even more disturbing fact in the human databases. Admiral, According to these records, humans have been doing this for centuries. They call it learning from experience, but their version involves accepting lethal consequences that other species would never risk. She displayed historical examples. Human space exploration involved sending crews on missions with minimal life support, knowing that many would die. But each death provided data that improved the survival rate for subsequent missions. Human medical research involves deliberately infecting volunteers with deadly diseases to test treatments. They accept that some will die to save others. Human military development includes testing weapons on their own soldiers to understand battlefield effectiveness. They view their own casualties as necessary data points. Admiral Kethmoran nodded grimly. This is why humanity advanced so rapidly after achieving spaceflight. They treat technological development like evolution itself, accept casualties to improve the species. The council sat in stunned silence until Professor Kethmoran raised the question that terrified them all. Admiral, if humans are still evolving and adapting, what will they become? Unknown, Admiral Kethmoran replied. But yesterday we received a communication from the human government that provides some insight. The display showed a message from Admiral Torres, the human military commander who had defeated the hegemony at Kepler. He appeared calm and professional, as always. To the hegemony high command, we appreciate your decision to withdraw from human space. However, we feel obligated to inform you of recent developments in human capability. Construction has begun on vessels designed to survive the heat death of the universe. Timeline for completion is approximately 12,000 years. We wanted to give you advance notice in case this affects your own long-term planning. The message continued with casual mentions of projects that sounded like science fiction. Consciousness transfer to artificial substrates, genetic modifications to survive in quantum vacuum, technology to extract energy from black holes. Humanity wishes to maintain peaceful relations with all galactic species. However, we continue to evolve and adapt to meet new challenges. We hope this will not cause diplomatic difficulties. High Counselor Murthak found his voice after several minutes of silence. They are telling us they plan to outlive the universe itself. And they consider this a minor diplomatic note, Admiral Kethmoran confirmed. From the human perspective, surviving universal heat death is just another engineering project. Dr. Silthara made the final, terrifying observation. Council members, we are not dealing with a species that conquered death. We are dealing with a species that made death into their greatest competitive advantage. They use mortality as a tool for improvement. They treat extinction as a problem to be solved. They view the end of the universe as a design challenge. Humanity is not immortal because they cannot die. They are immortal because they have made death irrelevant to their continued existence and growth. The vote for immediate surrender and formal diplomatic recognition passed unanimously. The hegemony's message to humanity was simple and desperate.